shit.
And every time I see your face, the ocean sees.
Hey guys, welcome to my full series review for Bleach. Bleach is a fantasy supernatural shonen battle manga written and illustrated by Tite Kubo, which was serialized between 2001 and 2016 in the Weekly Shonen Jump. And coming in at a whopping 74 volumes, it makes this the longest full series I have ever reviewed. Bleach takes place in a world where when someone dies, their soul is sent to a hidden world known as the Soul Society. Now, occasionally, for one reason or another, when someone dies, their soul does not pass successfully to the Soul Society and they are trapped in the real world. Now, when this happens, they slowly become corrupted and turn into an evil creature known as a Hollow. Hollows don't fuck around, they're very hostile and will attack people. The downside is that people can't see them, so if a human has run in with a Hollow, they're kind of fucked. Luckily, the Soul Society has a way to combat this, as they have a legion of Soul Reapers at their disposal. A Soul Reaper is a soul who, well, using their Zanpakuto, which is a special type of sword, they all have special powers, and they use these powers to go into the world of the living, find Hollows, and take them out. But they don't destroy the corrupted soul. What they do is that they actually cleanse them so the soul can pass peacefully into the Soul Society. And that is exactly what Rukia Kuchiki is at least attempting to do in the first chapter of Bleach. While in the world of the living, tracking down a Hollow, she runs into our main character, 15-year-old Ichigo Kurosaki. Normally, wouldn't it be a big deal if she runs into a human because she's invisible to them. However, Ichigo is special because he can actually see ghosts. So when this Hollow that Rukia is hunting ends up getting the better of her, he is caught right in the middle of it. And dangerously close to death, Rukia decides that the best way to get out of this situation, to save everyone, is to transfer my powers into Ichigo temporarily. So Ichigo accepts her powers, he becomes a Soul Reaper himself, and he is able to defeat the Hollows. The problem is that Rukia can't go back to the Soul Society now until her powers regenerate. So for the time being, Ichigo has to take over her job of cleansing Hollows and acts as a substitute Soul Reaper. So Bleach is quite the monster to tackle. As I mentioned earlier, it is extremely long. However, thankfully, it is divided into several distinct parts, which will make the story a lot easier to discuss. So for the first few volumes of Bleach, we are treated to, a very simple monster of the week type deal, where Hollows will show up, they'll try to attack Ichigo and his friends, and Ichigo gotta come in and save the day. With, of course, Rukia teaching him more about his powers. Now, I love these first few volumes of Bleach, and what makes them so interesting is the introduction of all of Ichigo's friends, and what makes them so interesting is that most of the Hollows Ichigo fights, they have these backstories. You find out who they were before they died. They often have a connection to one of Ichigo's friends. So while we're treated to a pretty enjoyable mini-arc, we also get introduced to all of these other new characters. Characters like Orihime, who really wants to have Ichigo's babies. Characters like Chad, who has a talking bird or something. And of course, Sasuke. Now, Sasuke is what is known as a Quincy, another type of race in this world. And very similar to Soul Reapers, Quincy's hunt Hollows. The big difference is that they don't really see Hollows as souls that should be cleansed. They prefer to just, obliterate them. So yeah, there's a lot of history and beef there. But yeah, these first volumes are just so much fun. I love the mini stories they tell, how they introduce us to this world and to these characters. And while it's overall pretty lighthearted and can be pretty funny at times, it does delve deep into some themes like grief and loss. I mean, it's a series about dead people, obviously. But I do think it handles these things very, very well. But it turns out that Rukia giving Ichigo her powers was kind of illegal and punishable by death. So these fresh new Soul Reapers come to town after her ass, and in order to leave Ichigo out of it, she reluctantly agrees to go along. Ichigo's like, not my Nakama. So he teams up with Uryu, Chad, and Orihime, who got strange powers at some point for some reason. And with the help of them, the mysterious Urahara and the cat Yoruichi, they travel into the Soul Society to save Rukia. It pretty much abandons everything from the first few volumes, like, all the dealing with loss and grief and all that great stuff, completely gone. Now it favors, we got like a dozen people to fight, we're getting power-ups, we're getting stabbed multiple times but not dying. Yeah, shonen battle manga. Now, at face value, this doesn't sound sound very good. It's like, whoa, what just happened to this great series? Well, why did it shit the bed? And yes, I would be saying that too if this first major arc in Bleach wasn't, honest to God, one of the best battle manga arcs I have ever read. Yeah, it's full of cliches, there's a lot of things that might not really add up when you think too much into it, but from the start of this arc up to volume 21 when it ends, it is such a fun read. We're introduced to the world of the Soul Society and a lot of the other Soul Reaper characters, most of which are really, really awesome. And their fights against Ichigo and his friends are super memorable, and the cool thing about it is that the Soul Reapers aren't villains. They just see Ichigo and his friends as intruders. They don't really think anything of it. And that's great. It leads to a bunch of interesting dialogue and unlikely alliances between these characters. It's really well paced, has some great payoffs, and a fantastic final battle. But what really ties this arc together, what makes it so amazing, is the underlying story between it all. Like, throughout this whole arc, you know something is wrong. Just something feels off. And when it's finally revealed at the end, it's absolutely amazing. One of the best twists I've ever seen in a manga. So yeah, overall, for its first major arc, Bleach did a pretty fucking amazing job. Which is kinda lame because the quality from here on out, So I'm going to be pretty vague on the plot details from now on to avoid spoilers, but the second major arc, which is also the longest arc in the series, kicks off, and it really kicks off, giving you almost no time to breathe whatsoever, and we're thrown into another story arc. A dozen new villains are introduced. We gotta power up again, guys. Now this arc here suffers for a number of reasons. I'm going to talk about a lot of them in the character section of this review a bit later, but the main things is that it has very poor pacing. Sometimes it just flies by like nothing happens. Sometimes it can be kind of slow and boring. One of the reasons for that is the middle of this arc really feels like a retread of the last arc. There's a lot of similar elements between the two. It really feels like Kubo was trying to recapture the spirit of the first arc, but just rehashing stuff doesn't really achieve that effect. It's not all bad though. This arc does have a few shining moments, especially near the end, which really make up for it, and I do think that this part all the way up to volume 48 is definitely worth reading at least once. It was a real shame at this point to see that Bleach lost a lot of its momentum considering the first major arc was just so damn good. The story was just a lot less interesting this time around, you know, like once we knew the big twist, it just wasn't as interesting to see stuff play out. But I finished volume 48 and I felt satisfied. This felt like a really good stopping point for the series. In fact, if only just a few more things were answered, the series could have ended here no problem. And I think it would have concluded as a very respectable series. Now at this point in its life, 48 volumes in, Bleach was on top of the world. We all know Bleach as one of Shonen Jump's big three, okay? Back in the late 2000s, Bleach along with One Piece and Naruto were extremely popular series. The Bleach manga was going strong with lots of popularity and sales, and it also had the anime series complementing its success. And I'm sure we also all know that after this era, Bleach took a bit of a nosedive in popularity. Now, there are dozens of videos you can watch, these long 30-minute analysis that go into every aspect of Bleach, discuss why it dropped in popularity, but I think I can sum it up in just 4 words. It goes to shit. Like, real, like, steaming horseshit. After the satisfying conclusion of the previous arc, Bleach moves into its third major arc, and it is, honest to God, probably the worst arc I've ever read in a battle manga. Just everything is wrong here. This didn't even feel like the same series. The story absolutely sucks. The characters suck. One of the biggest plot revelations, one of the biggest things to happen in Bleach at the end of the last arc is undone in the most hilarious way possible. It felt like I was reading a parody of a shonen battle manga. Now, the only good thing about this arc was that it was extremely short, and I'm pretty sure the reason for that was because everyone was like, hold up, this is fucking awful. And this is, of course, when Bleach started to decline in popularity. It's also when the anime ended. So the third arc put me into a coma. Like I was out for a good week or so. And then I'm like, oh my Jesus, I still have 20 volumes left.
Stop! He's already dead!
Now the fourth and final major arc of Bleach, the 1,000-Year Blood War, which, oh man, what a name, has quite the reputation. A reputation that I was well aware of when I started it. And that is that it is a very, very polarizing arc among Bleach fans. I don't really know why, because after reading it, the only thing I could think of was, wow, this is pretty shit. Now, I'll give the Blood War a bit of credit. It's nowhere near as bad as the previous arc, which was honestly comparable to the quality of Fairy Tail's worst moments. Yeah, this is a bit better than that. It actually gets off to a pretty great start. Not the very beginning. It introduces a bunch of bullshit characters I don't care about. But once it starts to pick up, I was like, hey, this is actually kind of awesome. I haven't felt this feeling reading Bleach in so long. What a refreshing experience. But it quickly goes downhill from there. Honestly, this arc just felt like a bunch of fan service with no substance. Kubo was just throwing a bunch of stuff people probably always wanted to see, but it was done in a way that just doesn't work well, and I'll discuss the biggest reason in the character section in a minute. And yeah, the most infamous thing about the Bleach manga is probably its ending. I didn't really know what to expect going into it. Okay, there's a lot of conflicting information about what happened with Bleach's ending. The official story is that Kubo decided to just end the series because of his health, which could be true, but because of how much of a colossal failure the ending of Bleach is, and because of the fact that, you know, it was like bottom of the rankings in Shonen Jump at the time, I really have to question if there were other reasons why Bleach ended. But yeah, this ending made me cry. It made me feel physical pain. The final fight was absolutely atrocious, the worst I have ever seen, and the final epilogue chapter was such bullshit. It was so fucking bad. I was laughing the entire time. So in order to elaborate on a lot of the points I made so far, we need to discuss Bleach's characters. A lot of the characters, when they're first introduced, I actually really like. You know, when we first see Ichigo and all of his friends, all of the Soul Reapers, I really love them all. Especially some of the Soul Reaper characters. Some of them are very, very fun and memorable and have very interesting backstories. Some of my favorites include Kenpachi, Renji, Yoruichi. For you know, reasons. And my god, the main villain for the first 48 volumes of this series, okay, I don't want to say who it is, I know most of you already know, but it is a spoiler, is one of my favorite shonen villains ever. He is such a fantastic villain, and there are a few other really cool and interesting villain characters in this first part of the story. The problem, though, is that there are too many villains. You know, first major arc, it was just the Ichigo and his friends versus the Soul Reapers, who were all really good guys. But when the second arc comes around, we're introduced to about a dozen more villains. The series is long, but it goes by really quickly. Like, a lot of it is just fighting, and a lot of times we only see these characters when they are fighting. We don't know much about them otherwise. So it feels just really unsatisfying when we see one of the Soul Reaper characters fight against a villain, and we don't know anything about this villain. He shows up, he's like, hey, it's me, this is my power, and then he gets defeated. It just feels like a waste of time. They spend so much of the second arc fighting villains I could not give a shit about, and it really bogs down the experience. But the main villain really holds it together. He's why, well, the ending of this arc was so satisfying. The final fight, it was really enjoyable. But then, of course, the series goes to shit. So what happens then? Well, almost instantly, I hated all the characters. Like Ichigo, I don't even know what was going on with him anymore. He just sucks. And it made me realize, you know, Ichigo doesn't really have much of a character to him. I can't really think of what his personality was like. Like, what were his ambitions in life? I honestly don't know. He was a bit interesting at first because, you know, he's like, oh, I got to save Rukia, yeah, I got all these cool powers and stuff, but then when this shit happens over and over again, I really couldn't care about him at all.
Hey there, I had to add this extra bit because I was not hard enough on Ichigo. Everything about his character, especially later in the series, is just the very definition of lazy writing and plot convenience. Ichigo's powers just make absolutely no sense. Starts off fine though, he gets transferred these Soul Reaper powers, you know, no big deal. But once the baddies start getting too powerful, there's no way he'll be able to defeat them. All of a sudden, it turns out that Ichigo had this other hidden power all along. And after that, these new baddies show up, turns out Ichigo had another secret hidden power all along. It gets so ridiculous. It's always like, oh, our dragons are attacking the Soul Society. Well, what do I do? It's okay, Ichigo. It turns out your grandfather was Dragonborn, and hidden inside you this whole time was the power to slay a dragon. What do you mean? You mean I've always had this power? Yes, and well, with a couple days of training, you'll be good to go. Wait a minute, did you always know about this? Well, of course I did. I'm Urahara. I know everything. Well, so why didn't you tell me like a couple months ago when we had to save the world and... Shut the fuck up, Ichigo. I thought the story would be over by then.
All of his friends... What the fuck even happens there? Chad just becomes stupid, okay? Orihime's like in love with Ichigo, that's all she ends up ever being. It is a love interest for him, and the romance is handled so horribly. Sasuke becomes a Sasuke. Rukia sucks. I used to love Rukia. She sucks now. And all the new characters they're introducing are so awful, okay? The villain of the third arc, holy shit, I hated him so much. But thankfully, this third arc only really introduces a couple of new villains, so despite this being an absolute dumpster fire of an arc, it does seem at least Kubo learned that, hey, maybe I shouldn't introduce so many villains, because that would really stretch things out, bog down the pacing, so at least he learned his lesson there. The final arc of Bleach, which is about 20 volumes long, decides to introduce, and I'm not kidding, 25 new villains. And that is the reason why this arc sucks so much. Nearly every single fight in this arc, aside from one very notable one near the beginning, just sucks so much because all of these villains are awful. They just show off their stupid quirks and personality, they get beaten, and that's it. And because there's so many Soul Reaper characters and stuff, we need time to focus on all of them. This is the end of the series. We gotta give you your fight, we gotta give you your fight, we gotta give you your fight, even though no one cares about you. The series at this point kind of forgets that Ichigo is its main character, because he's honestly barely even in this final arc. Sure, he got the final fight and a bunch of training shit in between, but he really doesn't do much here. Like I said, it seems like Kubo is just doing all the fan service stuff, showing, you know, like all the popular characters off. But because the villains are just so bad, it makes me not care about anything that's going on. The worst fight in the series happens during this arc, where a character, the new villain, he summons a meteorite out of nowhere to crash into Earth, and then the Soul Reaper character can somehow go up and split in half. That literally happened in Fairy Tail. Do you mean to tell me that one of the worst moments in Fairy Tail is also the worst moment in Bleach? How does this happen? I don't know if Mashima read Bleach, saw this, he's like, wow, that's really cool, I'll do it. Or maybe it's just a coincidence, like this is where the mind goes when you're absolutely dead ass out of ideas. But yeah, overall, these characters really ended up disappointing me. So let's move on to talk about the art of Bleach. Now, I have to say, early Bleach, first 48 volumes, I absolutely adore the art. Kubo's style in these volumes is just so great. The character designs are super interesting and fantastic. Even the characters I didn't like, I still thought they pretty much all had cool designs. The characters are all so expressive, all of the bonus art is awesome, the title pages of the chapters, just so much passion and creativity was put into it. I love it. The fights look amazing, the composition composition of the scenes is just fantastic. Overall, even if I wasn't enjoying a volume of Bleach, I could really appreciate Kubo's art. It's undeniable that in the later volumes of Bleach, Kubo evolved as an artist quite a bit. If we just compare art from the beginning to the end of Bleach, you can see that the dude gained some mad talent while writing Bleach. But what happened? Why do I seem like I'm about to be super critical of the art in late Bleach? Well, with Bleach going to shit, it brought about this tone shift where everything got super dark and edgy, and Kubo changed up his style a little bit. While, of course, the art at face value got better, everything just looks dull. All of the expressions of the characters are just like gone, like everyone's like has the same expression on their face. Fights don't look as interesting anymore, while the characters look better. It looks like he's sacrificed by you know, like forgetting to draw backgrounds. Like, it is good art, but it's just not drawn in a creative, interesting way like it used to be. It might look a lot better than other shonen manga, but, you know, compared to early Bleach, I find that there is a very strong decrease in quality. And it just made the series a lot less fun to read. But I can't take off any points for that because, of course, we still got this fantastic Yoruichi chapter near the end. So those were my thoughts on Bleach. God damn. Going into this, I didn't really know what to expect. For those who don't know, I read the first 48 volumes ages ago, and this was my first time experiencing the final bits of Bleach. Because of its reputation, I was kind of expecting to be disappointed, and I was. But I really wasn't expecting for the final volumes of Bleach to be this awful. Final arc does have its moments, sure, but overall it really left me with this empty feeling, and the ending was so truly terrible that I can easily say never go near this shit. So for my final verdict, for the first time ever, I'm going to be giving a series 3 different recommendations and ratings. The first is to only read the first 21 volumes of Bleach. If you are a fan of shonen battle manga and have not read this part of Bleach, you really owe it to yourself to give it a shot, because I stand by when I say it's absolutely fantastic, and I give this a 9 out of 10. Now, you can stop there. Not everything will be revealed, but I still think it's a fantastic read. However, if you do continue reading, then I'll give you my second recommendation, which is to read up to volume 48. You'll get a much more complete experience here with a satisfying ending, but do keep in mind that the quality does go down quite a bit, and there is a lot of lame stuff in these volumes, but overall, I still think this is worth reading, and I give it my score of 7 out of 10. But as a whole, I find it very hard to recommend Bleach because of how terrible it gets. I don't know if you guys really understand how much of a failure this ending was. You can look up lists that are like paragraphs long of how many plot points this series failed to wrap up. It was so awful. So my final score for Bleach as a whole, I really didn't think it would go this low, but I really can't give it any higher than a 4 out of 10. Yeah, I was not expecting to hate the final parts of this series as much as I did, but God damn, I'm glad it's over with. So there you have it. That was my review. If you're interested in checking out Bleach, all the volumes are in print and available from Viz Media. And for convenience sake, you can get them all in box sets. So you can get the first 2 and maybe get the third one if you plan on burning it. There's also the anime, which I have seen a good bit of, and in the parts that aren't shit filler, it does do a pretty good job adapting the manga. There's also a live action movie. Because well, of course there is. It is Bleach. So with that, thank you all so much for watching. You can leave your thoughts on Bleach and this review in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys soon for my full review of The Flowers of Evil, which is going to be nice because, you know, it's a shorter series, and no matter how good or bad it is, I doubt it will be as awful as Bleach's ending. So I will see you guys then.